what's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets, powered by FTN, presented by Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney here, hanging out with you. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic day. If you're watching live on our FTN YouTube page, smash the like button. You have any comments, any questions, you can certainly leave them there. If you're watching on Game Plus Network, we definitely appreciate you. Always a great lineup over at Game Plus. Ask you to head on over and subscribe to our FTN YouTube page. And if you have any questions while watching over at Game Plus Network, you can always hop over and watch the replay of this show, whether it's at ftnbets.com or at our FTN YouTube page. And you can leave any comments, any questions that you have there, things you'd like to see on this show, things you'd like me to cover potentially. We are going to talk a lot about everything happening in the sports world today. This show also available on iTunes and Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to your favorite podcast. So there's also that if you wanted to catch the replay as well. Daily Handle in the house. Yes, sir. Happy Memorial Day to everybody out there, all of our vets. And also, like I said, a lot to get to here on this show. We are going to break down everything happening really in the sports. We're going to hit up on all the four sports. In the NFL, we're going to take a look at round 3 of NFFC high stakes leagues. Just take a look at the players that are getting drafted. We got a couple days here. What, one more day left in May? How does it work? Yeah, yeah, May 30th. We got one more here. May, June, actually 2, right? 31st. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I don't know my days. I know that there's 31 days in October. That I know, because Halloween, right? Jokes aside, we have a couple more days. George, where's the sound effects? We don't have the sound effects. That would have been like, dun, 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 or like what's happening here all over the place. We switched over to another platform. We do believe we have the streaming situation all taken care of. But I did see the bats there just quickly in the corner of my eye. So we're going to take a look at all the players on average here in the month of May, high stakes leagues, where they're getting taken in the third round. Just give you a little bit of a feel. We talked about round 2 last week. We had our first quarterback off the board. It was Josh Allen. So now into round 3, I do believe there's 2 quarterbacks off the board, another tight end, and, really just getting into some of the running backs as well. Bats, George, Daily Handle. So we'll touch on that from an NFL standpoint, fantasy football standpoint. I failed to say off the top that Adam Redcape in the house, let's go. Let's cash some winners. Of course, we will talk Game 7, Hurricanes and Rangers happening this evening. And, if you're following trends, the Hurricanes win this one because they're perfect on home ice, and they are winless on the road. We'll also take a look at Game 1 tomorrow night in the Western Conference Finals between the Edmonton Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche. Take a look at the early series price, also like a series prop that I like in there as well. Going to take a look at the Conn Smythe future odds here, courtesy of DraftKings. There's certainly one or two players that should be favored, but there's also a guy that is tied for the scoring lead in the playoffs that is not even inside the top 12 in terms of odds. Maybe worth a sprinkle. We'll get into that in a little bit. We have some MLB props with Memorial Day. There's lots of afternoon action around the diamond. If you're looking for afternoon action, head on over to ftnbets.com. We have all the picks across all the sports from everybody. If you have the FTN betting package, you know that. But I'm going to focus in on a couple later games. Take a look at the Red Sox and the Orioles happening this evening as well. Most of the action is this afternoon around the diamond. There's a couple games later on this evening. The Dodgers are playing the Pirates. They're minus 340 favorites. We can't get involved in that. But I think there's some props that we can attack in this Red Sox and Orioles game because I've been really pumping the Red Sox tires over the past week or so. Just the hottest team in baseball, scoring a lot of runs, but they give up a lot too. The bullpen is not great. The pitching staff is just mediocre, right? It really is. Nate Eovaldi's like their ace right now. And he's up near the top in allowing home runs. I think he gave up 4 or 5 last week in a start. I do believe it also came against the Baltimore Orioles. So we could see some offense. It's a high total. I believe it's sitting at 10. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. And also a little preview. We'll get into it more so tomorrow. But the NBA Finals is set. We got the Celtics and the Warriors happening tomorrow, I do believe. Is it tomorrow? Man, my goodness. But we will dive into it tomorrow a little bit more. But the Warriors are in the finals for the 6th time in the last 8 years. They have 123 games of experience in the finals. So the Celtics, 0 games of experience. Of course, they're pretty young, right? We got the Tatum and Jaylen Brown duo. Pretty young. They get some young players on the Celtics squad. This is the first time that these two teams are meeting in the NBA Finals since 1964. It was Bill Russell and the Celtics who won that series in 5 games over Wilt Chamberlain, my boy, former Kansas Jayhawk, against the Warriors. So it was the Celtics who took care of that. And this from Hoops Hype, I thought this was pretty cool as well. The Warriors and the Celtics finals, the first one without a top 5 player in the MVP voting since 1990. That finals between the Blazers and the Pistons. Of course, there's a lot of stars in this series. We know about Steph Curry, and we certainly know about Klay Thompson, and Jason Tatum's had a really good season. Jaylen Brown's had some moments as well. But this is the first NBA final since 1990 without a top 5 player in MVP voting. So pretty spectacular there as well. Warriors in 5, Warriors in 6. Daily Handle, we know that you don't give a lot of respect to the Boston Celtics. We do have a ton of respect for the Boston Celtics here on this show, and we're going to sit back and put our hands above our heads, and hopefully everybody over at FTN bets in on this as well. You see the Celtics future at 40-1, courtesy of Frank Brank, right? When he came on this show, I've been talking a lot about Frank. You see the date, February 18th. That was roughly around the NBA trade deadline. 40-1, we had the future in there for the Celtics. And we have the Warriors. That was from November 17th. Before Klay even joined the team, they were number 1 on defense, number 2 on offense. You see the note there. Last 3 teams to be number 1 and number 2 in offense and defense efficiency have won championships. Now, some things have changed since then. We know that the Celtics are the number 1 defensive team in the NBA, and they have really rode that D all the way here to the NBA Finals. But it's nice to have both of those futures. Pumping the tires here myself just a little bit. The NHL is like, it breaks my heart not to really have much going on in terms of the NHL, because that's my sport. The only future I have left out of the 4, I had the Vegas Golden Knights before the season started. No good. They didn't make the playoffs. And you guys know that I had the Florida Panthers and the Calgary Flames. Both teams bounced in the second round. The one team that I have left, the Carolina Hurricanes, we'll see if they're hanging around in about 10 hours or so, if they can get it done on home ice. But I don't love their chances against the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? You're going to have to win games on the road to beat the Lightning. You're just going to have to. I guess they could go another series with only winning games on home ice if they do find a way to win tonight against the Lightning. But if they have to face the Avs in the next round, they will indeed have to win one game on the road. But for the futures, not bad, right? Shohei Ohtani, 50-1 to win the AL MVP last year. We had Corbin Burns at 20-1 to win the NL Cy Young. We were in on the Braves to win the World Series at 10-1. That was a preseason bet. Unfortunately, didn't get involved. I saw a lot of people were in on the Braves around the NBA or the MLB trade deadline. They were 35-1 in some spots at the trade deadline. They were out of it, right? And then Alex Anthopoulos acquired Eddie Rosario, acquired World Series World Series MVP Jorge Soler, who did go yard twice yesterday, I guess, against his former squad. Now a member of the Miami Marlins. And he also acquired Adam Duvall. Really, that trade deadline was key. I thought that ticket was dead. And then we were in on the Rams as well at 12-1 to win the Super Bowl. So the futures have been okay. But again, it breaks my heart not to have a hockey future here. One thing I wanted to say really off the top is that there will be no live show Mean Streets Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Monday. I am heading to a wedding. My old buddy Mike Omalon and those at Anthem Sports Entertainment and Game Plus are very familiar with Mikey O. He is getting married this week, and I am standing in there. We will have shows, though, on Game Plus and that you can check out on our YouTube page. It's going to be just heavy football related. We're going to do a couple best ball drafts. May bring in producer George into a fantasy football best ball draft, and it's going to be very new to him. So it maybe gets you a little bit of a feel of like a first-time thought process from George. Of course, we have rankings and articles and projections live over at ftnfantasy.com, and then I'll do the draft with him. And then Adam Pfeiffer, we're going to do another draft as well. Plus, we'll have some other football-related episodes throughout the week, just kind of diving into some things that we've talked about here over the past little bit. Fantasy football targets, best ball targets, stacks, high-stakes leagues, looking at the first 40, 50 picks happening here in the month of May. It's still very early, like I said, but we're starting to get a good feel. And there is an advantage to drafting at this time of the season. If you feel comfortable with certain players and you think maybe potentially they could ball out in like camp or in preseason, it just takes one or two highlight reel plays. Remember Amir Abdullah of the Detroit Lions? Remember when he popped off in a preseason game against the New York Jets? He skyrocketed up draft boards. It turned out it was a brutal pick. It was like the one highlight that the guy had in the course of his career. Man, that was really harsh on Amir Abdullah. But honestly, there is an advantage to drafting guys this early, and also, a bit of a disadvantage at some point too. Injuries do happen, but we'll get an early look. A lot of football content towards the end of the week, and if you are looking for NHL picks on the Wednesday, the Thursday, and the Friday, I'll still have picks in our FTN bet tracker. So if you have the package, you're gonna have all the picks. And if you want the package, use that promo code Meaney. Save yourself a little bit of cash. Even though the NHL season is winding down, you get all the picks. MLB, you can sign up for the month until that Stanley Cup is raised. If you're happy with what you've seen for the 2 weeks, then you can ante up and hang out with us during the MLB and golf season. A break, finally. Adam Rentkamp, 10-1. Stanley Cup future on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Looking pretty good, sir. Looking real nice. Man, they feel like they haven't played hockey in like a month. We'll take a break. We'll dive more into the NHL action tonight and an early look at the Oilers and the Avalanche. A lot to get to here on Mean Streets. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back in Mean Streets Live on Game Plus Network. Adam Rentkamp in the house, given with the Kadri going to lead the series. Goal scorers between the Oilers and the Avalanche at 11-1, worth a sprinkle. I like it as well. You know what? I've had issues over the last 24, 48 hours finding that series, the series goal props. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's because I'm north of the border here. I'm looking at DraftKings. I found it in round 1. I found them in round 2, and I haven't been able to find a whole lot between these two teams. I don't know much of the odds, honestly, Adam. Like, if you can post the link for me live, we can walk through this together. I just have not been able to find it, and it's grinding my gears. I've looked everywhere. The only one I can find is Connor McDavid over Mikko Rantanen for goals at -130. It was -125. It's now -130. And that's a bet I think we have to jump on, right? -130. We did have a couple correct in the previous round. We had Evander Kane over Tyler Toffoli. That was hanging around -120. And we did have Nathan McKinnon over Mikko Rantanen at +100. I think that was just a gift. Mikko Rantanen only has one goal here in the playoffs. He's been really good. He is a goal scorer. It's just been a little weird for him here in the playoffs. He's mostly a pass. I would say he's a pass first guy. He likes to, set it up first. And, he's kind of been away from McKinnon a couple of the games. He put Lehkonen on that top line and putting Rantanen with Kadri. I do like that call at 11-1. I'm going to be very intrigued with Evander Kane as well. Evander Kane is somebody that we've been riding here. We had him at 11-1 to lead the first round in goals between the Kings and the Oilers. We did not get it in round 2, but he was right there with Zach Hyman. Zach Hyman had a really good campaign as well. I think we see a lot of offense in that series, a ton of offense in that series. Let's talk about tonight here first, though. The Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Rangers. So Carolina has been just absolutely perfect here in the playoffs at home. They have been. I mean, for me, when I'm kind of splitting between these two teams tonight, usually in a game 7, I mean, home ice is certainly key. It's definitely key for the Carolina Hurricanes in this spot. But I typically lean with, that's what I check off, 2 boxes. It's who's the home team? How have they been on home ice? And then who has the better goalie? And we all know who has the better goalie. It's Igor Shesterkin, and he's looked really, really strong. If this series if this game is tied late in the third or goes to overtime, I have to give the benefit of the doubt to the Rangers. A lot of the money is coming in on New York here this morning. I like the Hurricanes, and it's really the daily handle. They haven't lost on home ice. The splits it's absolutely 180 and wild, the splits. We're looking at a team in Carolina at 4 goals per game on home ice, 1 goal allowed against on home ice, the complete opposite on the road. They need to stay out of the box. We know about the Rangers special teams is key. They have the advantage there as well in the power play. It's a Carolina team that had the #1 penalty kill in the NHL. Now they're at home in their own building. Place is going to be rocking. I like Carolina here. Let me just give you some of these 5-5 stats too, which I do believe I think they matter. So the 5-5 series between these two teams, courtesy of Natural Stat Trick, the Hurricanes own 55% of the shot attempts, 57% of the shots, 59% of the scoring chances, 58% of the expected goals, and 69% of the high danger chances. Overall on home ice in the 3 games in this series, they have the edge in every game but one when it comes to scoring chances. Game 1, 33-25, and you remember the Rangers really had a strong game 1. I thought they bounced back with a strong game 2 as well, and they had the edge in scoring chances 18-14 at 5-5. And then game 5 of this series, it was 26-18. Overall, Carolina has 81 high danger chances at 5-5 and just 48 against. They have a 15.99 expected goal for rate at 5-5 in this series. The Rangers have 11.38. But on the flip side, New York has outscored them by 1 at 5-5 in this series. And again, special teams has been the difference here for New York. I mean, if we're following trends again, the under hits at 5.5. Some spots is 5. I don't even know if you can get 5.5 anymore, and it's pretty juiced at -140. It was the same sort of deal in game 6, and we saw the over hit. So I'd maybe shy away from just the total as a single. If you want to get involved with the under 5, you're going to get plus money there. I think the Hurricanes win this game. I think it's like a 2-1 game, a 3-1 game. I think it's going to be much of the same that we've seen all year, or all series. Tight checking, low scoring, not a lot of offense at 5-5. Potentially special teams being the key here. But I am going to lean with the Hurricanes on home ice to win this game. And I know we have a lot of Rangers fans in the house, and certainly part of our FTN betting family as well. A lot of Rangers fans and some Rangers fans watching this show. It is what it is, right? Who knows? I'm going to be right or wrong. It's a really tough series to call. I'm just kind of following the trend here as well. Adam's checking in with some of these cool stats from DK, and I appreciate you. If we can bring some of this up here as we kind of transition into the next series happening. And in the next segment, I'll lock in some picks for tonight's game, but I'm on Carolina. So McDavid -130, so that hasn't changed too much over Rantanen. Draisaitl -135 versus Landeskog, and McKinnon -140 versus Kane. Interesting. I do like McDavid over Rantanen in that one. I do like McKinnon over Kane at -140. It's kind of steep to bet that as a single, but I can get behind the -140. You know what? I think Draisaitl is the play there, just with how lethal both of the McDavid and Draisaitl have been. 26 points. They're both up top of the scoring. it's going to be totals of 7 throughout the entire series. Lots of offense happening. I kind of have the lean there to Draisaitl, but Landeskog, man. Landeskog has been really good here in the playoffs. He's shooting the puck a lot. He's had some moments there. And the top goal scorers is kind of what I wanted to get at. Man, really do appreciate you, Rick. I don't know why I can't find this at all, but man, the FTN family, the Mean Streets family, I love it. I love it. Top goal scorer, McDavid, plus 475. Draisaitl, plus 475. Look at the value again on McKinnon. My goodness, plus 550 here. Rantanen, no chance. Landeskog, plus 650. Kadri at 11-1. You're right. You're on to something there with Kadri at 11-1. I think, obviously we're looking at a long shot here, longer odds. Kadri at 11-1 is pretty decent. He had a hat trick. He had a game where he had a hat trick in the series against the Blues. I think that's where the mismatch is going to be, right? Is that second line. The Oilers' second line is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Hyman are playing pretty good, but you're going to have Rantanen with Kadri on that second line. There may be a bit of a mismatch there, and then I do believe that the Avs are a little bit deeper, and certainly they have the better blue line there. But how can you not take that value again on Nate at plus 550? Didn't work out in the last round. He was one off from being tied, right? I think it was Kyrou and Hyman who, or Kyrou and... Yeah, who was it? It was Kyrou and Kadri. It was Kyrou and Kadri who led that series in goals with 4, and then Nate was just 1 behind. But we did have Nate in that first round at a similar price at about plus 550, I do believe, or 5-1. So I like that at plus 550 for McKinnon, and I think there's some value there with Kadri for sure. Good stuff, Adam. Really do appreciate that. Colorado moved their top line too much to have faith in Landeskog. They do tinker around. They have tinkered around a little bit. I think Lehkonen. Man, I think he fits in well with McKinnon and with Landeskog because he's so good at 5-5. He just wins a lot of puck battles. He's good on the forecheck. His stick is really strong. So if they are going to go toe to toe, McDavid and Draisaitl up against Nate, you gotta have I think a strong defensive forward on that line, and you get that with Artturi Lehkonen. So I think he stays there. He's going to be the sneaky player in this series, Artturi Lehkonen. I'm not saying he's going to lead the series in goals, but he's going to be plus money for points, and he's going to play with Nate on that top line. But again, Adam, they could switch things up. We've seen it happen before, but I think that's the way the Oilers are going to start things. I like Colorado to win the series. I think it goes 6. Colorado, the series spread 1.5. You can get the Colorado Avalanche here to win 1.5 series spread. That's minus 125. Like that's not bad at all. I do think we'll see 6 games in this series. I'm giving the Oilers a couple. How could you not? How could you not? It's going to be a lot about Mike Smith. On the other side, Darcy Kemper's, he's just looked okay. He's had moments where he's looked great. Other moments he's looked awful. It's kind of the same thing for Mike Smith. Like how Mike Smith is going to be the key. But the fact that McDavid and Draisaitl, I almost said McDraisaitl. This duo, put them together. They're phenomenal. They're good enough to win a couple games in this series as well. Take a quick break. We'll dive into some props that I'm going to lock in here for tonight's Hurricanes and Rangers Game 7. Keep her locked. Welcome back in Mean Streets Live on Game Plus Network. I was just looking into Lehkonen a little bit more, Adam. He could be our, Nichushkin. We were riding Nichushkin for quite some time. He got bumped off that top line. He kind of disappeared a little bit. But Arturi Lehkonen, his last 4 games, 3 points. He had a goal. Actually, had a couple goals. One was an empty netter. But his ice time, right? 18 minutes and 18 minutes. He played back-to-back there, 18-minute mark. That's significant for him. And 11 shots over those last 4 games, too. And his shot prop's usually on 1.5. Maybe we can get to 2.5 as this series, if it does indeed open up like I expect, and we see some offense and a lot of goals, and if Lehkonen's having a good series, we could get 2.5 at plus money, like a plus 145 or something like that. I would maybe get involved with that, but Lehkonen 1.5, it's probably going to be a little bit too juiced to kind of take as a single. But one thing I've noticed is that these books, they've been pretty good. Now that we got the 1 game on each night, and that's how things will go here in the 3rd round, it's hard to parlay that because you can't get the same game parlays. But of course, if you head on over to prizepicks.com, you can get the same, you can take all the shot props you want. And it's going to be fun in this series. I know FanDuel's doing some things where, you could take 3 guys or 4 guys to have 4+ shots. And I'm thinking tomorrow is going to be one of those days, right, with a Draisaitl, a McKinnon, a Landeskog, a Cale Makar. Like, you can get in on all of those 4+ shots. But FanDuel is offering that. But like DraftKings, you can't do the same game parlay stuff. But again, PrizePicks, you see it there. We have the free pick tracker. Easy for me to say. FTNDaily.com. Promo code FTN. They'll match your first deposit 100% all the way up to $100. Refer a friend. It's a free $25 in your PrizePicks account. Like I've said so many times, you can mix and match across all the sports that you love. You get a couple of picks in there from the NHL games. Match it up with an MLB pick, MLB prop, a golf pick, golf prop, whatever you want to do. Access is giving winners all the time over at FTNBets.com. But also, you can take some of these guys in the same game, which you can't do. I can't do personally. Bet365, north of the border here, DraftKings, I can't do that stuff. I can't take 4 or 5 guys from the same game, but PrizePicks will allow it. I think we're going to see some offense. It should be highly entertaining. And the Oilers can skate with Colorado. They can go toe-to-toe. George, do you have the series board? Did you already chuck that up? I may have missed it. There it is. So the Avs are heavily favored here at minus 250, but look at the bottom there. Edmonton, all 3 games, they got points, and those games happened towards the end of the season. They were key games. Colorado was missing some guys. Of course, Landeskog wasn't with the team in the final few weeks of the season, but Edmonton 1-0-2. They had a shootout loss against the Avs, and they had an overtime loss against the Avs as well. But here, Avs in 6, plus 380 over at DraftKings. Colorado in the series spread at minus 1.5 at minus 125. But of course, if you think the Avs are going to win exactly in 6, you can get that at plus 380. I do believe we will see a highly entertaining series between those two. For tonight, a couple picks. I am leading with Sebastian Ajo at 2.5 shots. I do think that he's going to hit the score sheet as well. And I saw the note from Adam about Teuvo Teravainen being perfect on home ice in terms of points. So Carolina, a lot of the money's coming in on the Rangers. You can get them at minus 140 over at DraftKings, minus 150 in most spots. I said it in the last segment. I like this team on home ice. I think they find a way to get it done. They've just been I don't know what it is, because they were a really strong team on the road. No team in the East won more games than them on the road. I just don't know what's going on there, but they're at home ice, on home ice in their own building, and they've been pretty good on home ice. And Sebastian Aho has been pretty good for the Carolina Hurricanes on home ice as well. 2.5 shots. He's cleared that number in 5 of his 7 games here in the playoffs. And he's had a lot of success getting points as well. 4 goals and 8 points in the 7 home games here in the playoffs. He's got 2 goals and 5 points in the 6 games against the New York Rangers. Minus 124 for the shots at 2.5, and then minus 145 for a point. You're going to get a better value, better price for Teuvo Teravainen, who is playing with Sebastian Aho. So I have no problem with that. I think the line gets on the board. Seth Jarvis is another guy that you can consider maybe for an assist. His shot prop's at 1.5. He's been at 5 a couple times in this series. It's just too tough to take him as a single. Maybe you can head on over to PrizePicks, get involved with Seth Jarvis, and then get involved also with Sebastian Aho. And then I'm looking at the top player for the Rangers. I'm just Game 7, everything on the line. I'm looking at the top players. Andrei Svechnikov has just been so hit or miss. The shot attempts have certainly been there with him, but I'm leaning with Aho, and then I'm leading with Mika Zibanejad at minus 130 here to have 3 shots. He's had at least 2 shots in every game in the playoffs. 13 games, he's had at least 2. Well, you need 3, but he's been right there. He's cleared 2.5 in 6 of those 13 games, but he enters game 7 with goals in 3 straight games. He's got 7 in the playoffs, and he's got 11 shots in his last 4 games. He has 13 shot attempts in the last 2 games. 13 shot attempts. The ice time is there. The shot attempts are there. Checks a couple boxes. Honestly, I've had a couple rough game 5 and 6 have been really rough on my wall in this series because you guys know I'm an over. I like overs. It's hard to find an edge when it comes to unders. Not a lot happening in this series. So I've been burned a couple times, so proceed with caution. But Ajo and Mika Zibanejad are 2 guys that I do believe will show up tonight. The shot attempts have been there for these guys. We have a track record with Ajo at home, and then we have a recent track record with Mika Zibanejad. And the 16 points, man, guy's having a heck of a playoff run. He's right there in the top 5 in scoring. He's been good. You get minus 149 for a point there, 16 points in the 13 games and 12 points in his last 8 contests. And then if you're looking for a plus money play, as you see there, Seth Jarvis at 1.5 is juice. If you can find a parlay that you like tonight, we got some MLB stuff in the next block. Maybe you can parlay that together. But Vincent Trocheck would be the guy for me. He's plus 150 over at Caesars. He's plus 145 over at DraftKings. I think it's the best plus money play on the board. I'm also a little intrigued with Adam Fox shots or an assist, but I am giving you what I think are the best plays on the board here tonight. So for Trocheck at plus 150, he's cleared 2.5 shots in 3 of his last 5 games here in this series. He's had 5 shots in 2 of those games, so that's a positive too. If you're playing on FanDuel and you're looking for a guy who could potentially get 4 or 5 shots, this is the guy. He plays in all situations, gets some top power play time, gets some penalty kill time as well. The special teams has been good for the Rangers, as I noted earlier. The power play has been good, but they're giving up a lot of chances as well. Trocheck has a shorthanded goal in this series. He leads the Hurricanes in shots in this series with 18. It's only 18 in 6 games. It's not a lot, right? As I told you, there's not a lot of offense happening in this series, especially on 5-5. It's been very, very stingy, but the Hurricanes are the better 5-5 team all year and throughout the playoffs. It's just been the one Achilles heel for the Rangers in these playoffs. They got dominated 5-5 against the Penguins, and for the most part, the Carolina Hurricanes have had the edge, as I told you earlier. They have the percentage in shot attempts and shots and high danger chances and scoring chances, the expected goals for, courtesy of Natural Stat Trick at 5-5. But Trocheck is your plus money play over at Caesars. And I don't have a note here on Seth Jarvis. Just let me find it here for you guys. Just to give you a bit of a feel, I know that you could look it up yourself, but he is top 3 on the Hurricanes in shot attempts in this series. In fact, it's the defensemen like Brett Pesce and Brady Shea. These are the guys that are actually leading the Hurricanes in shot attempts. But for Seth Jarvis, I'm surprised that we're just getting 1.5. I would take 2.5. If you could find it anywhere at 2.5, you're definitely going to get plus money. He had 3 shots in game 6. He had 4 shots in game 5. He had 2 shots in game 3, and he had 3 shots in game 1. So he's cleared 1.5 in 4 of the 6 games here. And then against the Bruins, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 7 games. He had at least 2 shots as well. He had another one with 8. He's having a really good playoff. He's had 3 goals and 8 points here and 32 shots. It's just 1.5 is at minus 190, so it's really tough. That's it. That's all we got here for tonight's action. Daily Handle. Can't stand the Oilers. What's wrong? What's the beef? What do you like about the Edmonton Oilers? Fun? Exciting? It's not like they're highly touted all the time, right? I mean, I guess they kind of are. Heading into the season, they had better Stanley Cup odds than the Flames, for example, but they were underdogs against the Flames. It's tough for me not to like McDavid and Draisaitl. Those 2 guys, I could understand maybe Kane kind of rubbing you the wrong way, but maybe it's just a history thing for you with the Edmonton Oilers. Maybe all the runs, all the cups in the mid-'80s, it kind of got to you potentially, but it should be highly entertaining. Fascinating stuff to watch here. Any questions, hit me up. Again, we'll be live here tomorrow on our FTN YouTube page. NHL picks, props, I'll dive into tomorrow as well. You know, now that I got some of the series props courtesy of Adam Rankamp, I can just lock in those for you guys as well if you're missing the show here today. But there'll be no live show giving NHL picks on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, or the Monday. We do have Dangle Bet Selly on Tuesday, but again, ftnbets.com, promo code NHL. You'll have all the picks there. You can go check it out in our bet tracker. Save yourself a little bit of cash. The fans are point emoji, hate Evander Kane. Strong words, sir. Strong words. MLB props and picks in here next. Going to dive into the Red Sox and the Orioles. Keep her locked. What's going on, everybody? Let's talk a little baseball here. Daily Handle's all over the Oilers here. Draisaitl, don't even put that up. Just think he's not a good guy. Leon Draisaitl. Hey, maybe he's harsh with the media, but man, like, answer these questions all day. I kind of feel for the athletes, right? Especially in the big market like Edmonton, like all the heat that they got all year long. How can we not win it every night? And this and that and this. He did seem like a bit of a prick is what you call him. A little bit of a prick. But man, like, let's be real. The guy is a phenomenal hockey player. He's playing on one leg. He's been really, really good. Actually, can we bring up the Conn Smythe odds right now? Let's bring it up right now, George. I meant to do this in the last block. So these are Conn Smythe odds. McKinnon plus 320, Cale Makar plus 450, McDavid at plus 500, Vasilevsky plus 550, and Nikita Kucherov 9-1, Hedman at 12-1, Landeskog and Shesterkin there at 16-1, Darcy Kemper 18-1, Mikko Rantanen 20-1, Steven Stamkos 22-1, Sebastian Ajo 25-1. You notice who is not on this list? Leon Draisaitl. Why? Why is he not on this list? He has the same amount of points as Connor McDavid. I get it. Connor McDavid is great. You want to talk about primary assists? Leon Draisaitl doesn't have many primary assists as Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid moves the needle. He's got a higher expected goal rate. He has been the better player of the two. They are tied up at the top in terms of points, but come on, are you kidding me? We're not going to get Draisaitl. We're not going to sprinkle Draisaitl at 35-1, even if we like the Avs here. At 35-1, put a buck on it. $35. Friendly reminder. The Conn Smythe is won in the Stanley Cup Finals. It really doesn't matter what happened in round 1, 2, or 3. It really does not. If the Oilers make the finals and they're in the finals and they win the Stanley Cup, and Leon Draisaitl has, I don't know, 5 goals and 11 points, and Connor McDavid has 2 goals and 8 assists, 9 assists. I'm just kind of speculating here. I can't really see the future, but goals will matter, especially if Leon Draisaitl has a couple key goals. At 35-1 for a guy who's playing this good next to Connor McDavid, I'm not saying that he should have the same sort of odds as Connor McDavid, but there's no way that Mikko Rantanen at, what was it, 20-1, George, should have better odds than Leon Draisaitl. What are we even doing here? Like, 20-1 is ludicrous. No way. Darcy Kemper at 18-1. I'll tell you what, there's right here on this board, probably the safest pick on this board is Vasilevsky at plus 550. I mean, the Hurricanes are having issues scoring goals on the road, issues scoring goals in general. Maybe it's the Rangers as well. But Vasilevsky he's just been an absolute beast. He's just a complete monster. So if Tampa finds a way to win in the finals against the Avs or the Oilers, it's most likely because Vasilevsky sold the show and he limited those high-powered offenses. So McKinnon, I'm not totally into those short odds as the favorite. Makar is interesting, but you got to keep in mind that it will be about the finals and who shows up in the Stanley Cup Finals. I get it. Give the edge to McDavid. The Oilers are going to be kind of overmatched here in this series against the Avs, going up against a better goalie, a deeper team, and a team with better defensemen. But at 35-1, what are we doing? I think he is a points machine, and it is part of their job to answer those questions. I get it, but some of the questions are just ludicrous. So I understand why, maybe you'd shake your head or a bit of a pass on the questions when it comes to Draisaitl. But anyways, enough about that. I just wanted to throw at you guys 35-1. If you're looking for a long shot, you're looking for a sprinkle, but I would rank them kind of Vasilevsky, and then I'd get in on an Av, whether it's I'd probably Cale Makar, right? Cale Makar in there. Okay, so tonight, a lot of action around the diamond. Make sure you set those MLB lineups for the week because first pitch happens and then they lock, especially if you're in a weekly locks league. I'm looking at the Red Sox and the Orioles here tonight. We got Rich Hill against Tyler Wells. I'm sure you're sick of me talking about the Boston Red Sox. I'm kind of sick of talking about them as well, to be honest, but we follow trends here. We keep tabs on hot teams and things that are happening here in Major League Baseball. And over the last 2 weeks, the Red Sox lead baseball in home runs with 29. They got 108 runs. Nobody else has 100. The next closest team in terms of runs over the last 2 weeks. The LA Dodgers at 88. RBIs, we got Boston at 103. We have the average at 324. Nobody else has an average over 280. Again, that is actually the Mets are sitting at 288, my bad. But everybody else, right, 288 and above, it's a pretty significant gap in terms of the hottest team and the second hottest team in terms of getting on base. And that's the Boston Red Sox at 385 on base percentage, also leads Major League Baseball for the last 2 weeks. They also lead in slugging at 585. Is not a team that's in 500. Right, the Dodgers are next at 497. It just goes to show how hot this Red Sox team has been offensively. And of course, you guessed it, they lead in WOBA at 417. The next closest is the Dodgers at 370, and then WRC plus 176, Dodgers at plus 141. So we have Tyler Wells here on the bump for the Baltimore Orioles. We have the total at 10.5, and the Red Sox are favored, of course, to win this game. I just feel like instead of taking the Red Sox when they're favored like this, let's get involved with the team total over 4.5 runs, 5.5 runs plus money. Let's get involved maybe with the over at 10. I just feel like with their bullpen, with their starting pitching staff, and as hot as their offense is, and Baltimore, kind of hanging around over the past couple weeks, getting some kids in their lineup, Mountcastle back in the lineup. We all know about Rutschman is yet to hit, but putting some pretty solid at-bats together as a young buck in the bigs. The Orioles are going to do their part and score some runs as well, but we got Tyler Wells in the bump here today. He's given up 5 home runs. He's had 37 2/3 innings on his 2022 MLB resume. He's given up 38 hits and 18 earned runs. He's got a 4.30 ERA. He only has struck out 25 guys in 37 2/3 innings. That is not what you want to see in terms of a couple categories that I like to look at when it comes to maybe picking on a pitcher. Of course, you want to look at the splits. You want to look at the home and away and how he does against righties and how he does against lefties. I also personally, if we're going to try to call some home runs or, total bases, get a double off the wall or things like that, I like to look at fly ball rates and I like to look at contact rates. So Wells' contact rate is not super alarming, but it is at 78.5. It's getting into that alarming red flag territory. Up near 80% is something that I think is a bit of a red flag. And then we have the fly ball rate at 46.3%. So that could help you. In Baltimore, we know that things are different with the dimensions in Baltimore, especially left field. But over at Fenway, not so much, right? Balls are flying out of the park. So there's a couple hitters that I'm taking a look at, and I have been talking about a few of these guys that have hit right-handed pitching really well this season. So Ty France leads all hitters against righties in terms of hits with 52, but Devers is second, 51 with a 340 average. JD Martinez is third with 45 hits and a 366 average. Xander Bogaerts is tied with him with 45 hits. So we have 3 Boston hitters going tonight inside the top 4 in hits against righties. Devers 340 average, JD 366 average, and then Xander 321 average. And we know what Trevor Story has done over the last month or so as well. So I am looking at total bases here today. I think, Devers is probably the safest, but you got to get minus 150 there for him. JD at minus 155. Xander Bogaerts at minus 130 here for over 1.5 total bases. I like Devers to go yard at plus 275, and I think it's worth like a 0.25 unit just to ride this out with Trevor Story. The last time I talked about it, it didn't work. We laughed and we joked about the curse, and it's not a thing. Got George to put together a Trevor Story straight up board story, and it didn't work out. We clipped it, we put it on social. It just doesn't work out sometimes. But the truth remains, like, he's still one of the hottest hitters. And these guys that are hitting in front of him are getting on base against right-handed pitching. So they are getting on base where we're going to have an opportunity here for Story to drive in some runs, plus 155 for an RBI, plus 100 for a run, plus 100 for over 1.5 total bases. That's where I'm at with this Red Sox team. I get it. I'm sick of talking about them as well, but let's ride this trend out. There's a lot of afternoon action happening around the diamond today. If you wanted another one, I like the Astros on the run line, 1.5 here today. Not a lot of offense between, I guess, the Oakland A's are not scoring. We'll say that. They're not scoring any runs. And then Blackburn has been really good for Oakland on the other side. But there's been some numbers. I feel like some regression is coming in his game. He's been almost perfect to start the season, but he does give up some contact. And the Astros are a team that has a lot of contact as well, and they don't strike a lot. So I'm looking tonight at some of the Boston props. over team total, over 10 runs, because I think Baltimore will do their part. Rich Hill in the bump hasn't been fantastic, and you get that bullpen in there as well. And then on the other side, another game tonight to maybe take a look at would be Alex Bregman against the lefty in the Oakland Athletics in Blackburn, and then the Astros on the run line at -1.5, and get that at plus money. One break, and I think we're done with baseball. I don't think there's anything else baseball related. I don't think there's anything else hockey related as well. We're going to dive into some football stuff here on Mean Streets. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back into Mean Streets. I think I mixed up Blackburn. I don't know if I called him a lefty or not. Usually I get in on Alex Bregman against a lefty, but Blackburn is a righty. But one thing I did want to say, and I was talking in the last block about just maybe some of the regression kind of coming his way. Like, he's walked 9 guys in his last 3 starts. He has a 6.80 K per nine. That's 36 strikeouts in 47 innings. So he's pitching to a lot of contact. He hadn't really had issues with walks until recently, but he's got the xFIP that's at 3.39 and the ERA is at 1.70. I mean, he's been phenomenal so far this season, but his first matchup against the Astros, they make a lot of contact. It's a low total at 7.5. You got Valdez on the other side. He hasn't really given up a whole lot. So I do think that we'll see a low scoring game, but I think we'll see the Astros win by a couple, and you get them on the run line -1.5 at plus 105. So like I said, with the Paul Blackburn, the reason I think we'll see some regression, and I think why we see the xFIP a little higher than the ERA, is just that strand rate's at 84%, league average around 7%. That's like leaving guys on base. He doesn't really have that swing and miss in his game. Strikeouts is okay, modest, like 6.8 K per nine is not fantastic. So he's getting a little lucky. He does keep the ball on the ground. I think the Astros do get to him a little bit. Let's switch gears and talk a little NFL. NFFC high stakes leagues happening here in the month of May. This is round 3, the ADP on average here. So you see Saquon Barkley there. I think actually terrific value for Saquon if you want to take another shot. I didn't like the price last year, end of the first, early second. So now you can get him early third here for Saquon. You got to feel like the offense is going to be a little bit better in New York this year with the addition of Brian Daboll. That's the biggest offseason addition maybe in the NFL, right? To get an offensive mind like Daboll. I don't think we'll see any like quarterback sneaks on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, or whatever the heck the Giants did last year. An absolute joke, but no creativity at all in their offense last year. The offensive line is a little bit better. They've made some additions, certainly through the draft and through free agency over the past couple of years to try to address the offensive line. Daniel Jones got one foot out the door. They didn't pick up the option. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw Tyrod Taylor at any moment here in this season, but Saquon Barkley, he is going to get the bulk of the carries, and we did see an old school Saquon game from him last year against the Saints. That's the kind of upside that he does have, catching balls out of the backfield, 100 plus total yards. Is going to be the goal line back there for the Giants. And don't mind the price, but any steeper than that, like, it will not be spending a second round pick. Even if this is the first pick in the third round, it does seem weird. Why you won't spend a second, but you spend a first pick in the third? I'm pretty sure like Saquon would have to go outside the top 10 or 12 running backs for me to take a shot on him, and this is most likely not going to be the case. Let's be honest. Also on that board, we did see Mike Evans. I'm in on Evans. AJ Brown, Cam Akers, T. Higgins. You got Keenan Allen, James Conner, who did have a career year last year. I think he had 15 rushing touchdowns, which was second to Jonathan Taylor at 18 overall, but 3.7 yards per attempt was a career low for him. So he wasn't really efficient, but the Arizona offense was good, and he was getting some touches inside the goal line, which will be the case again this year. He will be the goal line back. And Kyler Murray, they've kind of scaled back from Kyler from the rushing attempts, especially inside the red zone over the past couple of years. I mean, it's in his nature to call his own number, and he's so elusive he can get in there. But the shoulder has been an issue for him over the past couple of years. So Connor, I think, he's probably not going to score 18 touchdowns again. It's hard to predict those kind of things, but double digits is certainly very, very possible. I don't mind where he's going here. You see another quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is actually the second quarterback off the board. You got Jalen Waddle in there, Kyle Pitts, Justin Herbert again, and Deontay Johnson. I'm probably out on Johnson. I don't love the quarterback play in Pittsburgh. I think it's a fair price. I probably won't have shares of Mahomes or Herbert. I like to think I would wait it out a couple picks or maybe another round to get Herbert over Patrick Mahomes. I do have Herbert ranked ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Everybody else on this list I do like. Cam Akers is interesting at 28. He came back off a Achilles injury. Pretty surprising for him. He suffered the Achilles injury before the season started, and he returned towards the end of the season. His numbers weren't all that great in the playoffs. He wasn't all that efficient. He did catch 10 balls. He was catching balls out of the backfield, which is a plus. But let's give him a little bit of a pass. He came back from an Achilles injury, for one, which is crazy. We don't really see that at all in the NFL, to come back that same season, even though he suffered it, a couple weeks before. But also, he went up against some really tough run defenses. Tampa Bay, one of the best. Arizona, one of the best. San Fran, one of the best. And Cincinnati, believe it or not. A couple years ago, worst run defense in the league. But last year, one of the best. Those were all top 10 defenses in terms of allowing the fewest yards per attempt and rushing yards. Those were all really strong run defenses. So let's give them a little bit of a pass. Darrell Henderson's kind of been a little bit better over the past couple years, a little bit more efficient, but Akers has that strong ceiling, high ceiling, strong upside, and Sean McVay likes to lean on him a bit. I do believe we have one more block here. The stat of the day. I meant to bring it up in the first block. We'll bring it up in this final block here on Main Streets. We'll see you soon. Welcome back one final time. Let's bring up this comment from Myron Kidd. I absolutely love it. People are loving McDavid and McKinnon. Wait till you see Connor Bedard. Man, if the Habs could just come dead last again and get Connor Bedard first overall, I will be absolutely ecstatic. Oh my goodness, that guy is going to be an absolute stud. Yeah, he's the next Connor McDavid. Those are big skates to fill, right? But Connor Bedard is looking absolutely lit. Your NFL stat of the day is kind of courtesy of Tom Brady here. Highest neutral pass rate. We have some amazing tools over at FTNFantasy.com, FTNBets.com, and FTNDaily.com. I really like the splits tool. The Bucks played at a very fast pace last year. They were 7th in terms of pace. This is just like a stat here with just neutral pace rate, like game script for just like tie game, basically, right? Passing all the time. 66.5 for their pass percentage last year. And Tom Brady led the NFL in passing attempts with 719, passing yards 5,300, touchdowns 43, only had 12 picks, and 312 passing yards per game. That's not going to change. The Bucs offense is going to stay the same. It really is. Even with Bruce Arians up in the front office, it's not going to change. Brady's a good target. Evans is a good target. Leonard Fournette's a great target. Chris Godwin's a good target. And I think Russell Gage is a pretty good target as well. Brady's going to drop back and chuck the ball more than anybody again this season, just like last year. Get your Tampa Bay Bucs in your fantasy football drafts. We are back tomorrow. Have a great one. Go Hurricanes. Cheers.